And we are live. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on the call today. I am Deborah St. Pierre, the CEO of Hawk Networks and co-founder of Hawk and Althea platform. So if you're joining us, you probably already know Althea as the disruptive and innovative platform with machine-to-machine payments and dynamic routing protocol that that revolutionizes the telecom, utilities, and infrastructure space. We've been building since 2017. We're the L1 blockchain launched together with an amazing group of about 50 validators in the spring of last year. Or this year, 2024. And we have been in our integration phase. So I am joined today with Shalabi from the Chandra Station team and Justin and Christian from the Hawk team that are supporting the development of Althea L1 that are going to give us an amazing update. And just to preface before we get into quick intros, this is a Q&A type session. So if you have questions, drop them in the YouTube or on Twitter or in the Discord as well. And we'll be happy to get those questions answered for you as we go along. And if you aren't already a member of our Discord community, we'd invite you to do so as well. And without further ado, if Justin, Christian, and Shalabi, if you all just start off with a quick round of intros for maybe if we have some new folks coming along, might be good to just start there. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go first. Hi, I'm Justin, CTO and co-founder of Hawk. And I've done a lot of the initial development on Althea as Althea L1, the Althea protocol itself, and then Gravity Bridge, which is the bridge that Althea L1 is using as well.
Hi, my name's Christian. I am Hawk's lead blockchain engineer. I am solely focused on all of our blockchain products, including Gravity Bridge, Althea L1, and Liquid Infrastructure.
Hi guys, my name's Chalabi. I help run a validator in the Cosmos called Chandra Station, and I've been focused on assisting the Hawks team with building front ends, whether it be for Gravity Bridge, Althea, usually focused on things like staking and governance.
Very cool. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about the team that's here is that they represent very OG and multifaceted team members that have been a part of the different blockchain ecosystems for some time. So I think it's going to be I'm really interested to hear today, not only, of course, where we're at in terms of development of Althea L1 and how people can participate, but also just kind of the design perspective. Like, what were the choices made? Where are we, spending a bit more time? What does that maintainability look like? And really that sustainable approach that y'all have taken to the build, I think is really interesting. So, just real quick before we maybe launch into just a quick update, we do have an audience member, Zeke, who's asking an ETA on the chain upgrade. Maybe we can just give them a quick acknowledgement of that, the timelines there, and then give a bit of an update about where we're at.
Yeah, Christian, do you want to handle that? This would be the Althea. This would be the upcoming Althea 1 upgrade.
So we've been working on the Althea L1 upgrade to SDK version 46, and that's all done and being tested and verified before we actually go live with the launch. But we're working on some additional features for the MicroTX module, and we just kind of want to present the community with kind of a bundle that makes more sense rather than doing one upgrade and then like several other upgrades for minor features in the MicroTX module. So I would expect to see a proposal live potentially next week, potentially by the end of the month. Little unsure on the timeline that we're actually going to kind of make the proposal, but we've got everything designed and testing is still kind of undergoing at the moment for some of the new features.
Yeah, cool. So I'm going to pull over and talk a little bit about some of the features in that. So first of all, there's just the regular version upgrade. And some people ask, well, why are you going to Cosmos SDK 46 SDK 50 is out. Shouldn't you be all the way over there? And typically our philosophy with Cosmos SDK versions is that we try and be conservative unless we want a specific feature. So unless there's something that we need that justifies taking a risk of using a newer version, then the best thing for the community is probably to recommend the version that has sort of the highest TVL or the most changes in production right now. That's going to represent the lowest risk to the community and the least amount of effort. So this is typically what we recommend. And in this case, SDK 46 provides some security improvements, a few additional features that we want, and we're kind of bundling this with changes to the microtransaction module, which are and these changes are all around making sure that the community has the maximum number of fee controls and switches that governance can execute. Because we also have a philosophy, design-wise, that anytime you make and deploy something on chain, it should always be as configurable as possible by governance alone. Meaning that, if the validators and the delegators want to put up a proposal and vote on a settings change, they should not have to consult the developers again. It should be like, yes, the developers put all the bells and switches, the proposal passes, the chain makes its own choices about what's going on, as much as that is possible, within the constraints of something you can actually code. So yeah, that's really the direction we are going there. And we're also going to pull in, a few other little utilities that governance might find useful, like a tool to do governance votes to grant to more than one person at a time, because that limitation is also a little inconvenient. Yeah, and I think that's it on the Althea L1 sort of upgrade schedule. And just for context around Althea L1 in general, remember that Althea L1 is a hybrid chain. So it's designed for IFI, infrastructure finance applications, that sort of have a foot in both worlds where they're doing real world value transfer. There's some sort of sale that's occurring. And then these things also need to be connected to the RWA sort of DeFi ecosystem. And these are two very different transaction types. And what Althea 1 does is it brings them all into one platform and links them seamlessly together, which provides a very nice integrated platform for what the Althea protocol does. For example, it's selling bandwidth. And in a lot of ways, selling bandwidth is the same as selling a candy bar or any other physical good. Your payment has to settle right away because somebody's going to walk away. Somebody's going to use the bandwidth, or they're going to walk away with the candy bar or whatever it is that they're buying. And then on the programmable side, you have all of the normal DeFi with the normal DeFi caveats, mainly that people will want, there's induced demand on the DeFi side, meaning that airdrops, claims, lending market stuff, liquidations, the whole DeFi application sort of traffic generates traffic there. And you have to be sure to keep that under control so that the microtransactions can continue to be smooth. And that's sort of the whole premise in a very small nutshell. Now, let's see. I think the next thing to talk about is deep index and deep index design, right, Deb?
Yeah, before we get into that, I would love to understand a little bit, or just kind of share with everybody a little bit more about how the micro TX module assigns block rewards, and some of that. It might also be interesting. I know we have a proposal up in the Althea forum that discusses some parameter changes there. So it might be just to add some context for folks that are a little bit more involved in the community or for a validator, how that all is meant to align and work. And then for those folks that are kind of just joining us, please do, if you want to get involved in governance or in the community more meaningfully, the forum is a great place to have those just kinds of discussions, as well as Discord, just following the call. So please go ahead, Justin, if you have some thoughts there.
Yeah, and I did just want to say, like we were talking about before with parameters and providing a lot of community control, our philosophy and what we want to support and what we hope the Althea 1 community adopts as their philosophy too, and I believe they will, is very governance forward, open participation. People who want to come in and make changes through governance can actually do something. which is frequently, unfortunately, not the case in sort of blockchain ecosystems. So I know some people may have been burned trying to be involved in these sorts of things before. Please give it another chance and try out with Althea L1 because you can make a difference. So let's see. Now let's talk about let's talk about the microtransaction module. So the thing about what I was describing with infrastructure finance applications, which are RWAs that book their revenue entirely on chain, is that the ideal incentive structures for a blockchain that works. The ideal incentive structures for a chain that's about transactions are very different from the ideal incentive structures for a blockchain that is about that is executing programmable transactions, as opposed to just people buying physical goods, like something you would typically do with a credit card. So in order to incentivize reliable behavior, the microtransaction module allows users to choose to pay a percentage fee of the total transaction value. And that percentage fee is configured by governance. It's currently set to 10%. And that fee is paid directly to the validator that includes the transaction. Whereas on the other hand, when a validator chooses to include a programmable transaction, so like a ERC20 swap or an NFT mint or a contract deploy, the Althea fees for that are burned. And the reason for this is to ensure sort of a reliable platform where whenever somebody is trying to buy bandwidth or trying to make some real world exchange, validators have the right incentives. They're like, okay, I need to pause the sort of programmable execution and focus on getting these transactions through so that people can go about their daily lives, because that is the important, the sort of key difference between these programmable transactions and real world transactions is that real world transactions are in the real world. They can't wait for anything. You have to walk out of the store, somebody is watching the Super Bowl and needs to pay for bandwidth, etc. Whereas programmable transactions can sort of be put on pause and resume without causing too much real harm. And also, if you continue to increase the fees, then programmable transactions prioritize themselves nicely, because what people do on chain follows their financial incentives that are visible from what they're doing in DeFi, as opposed to with real world transactions. It's very easy for the fee to not necessarily be equal to the importance of the transaction. For example, let's say that you have to pay the parking meter for your car. Obviously, your car getting towed is very expensive, but you don't want the fee for paying your parking meter to be to get enormously more expensive over time. To be enormously expensive because there's a lot of other traffic on chain. So anyways, with that reasoning talked about, let's get into the details. So right now, part of what Christian is working on is and what he was talking about before, is some of the governance features that allow the community to decide the split between how much of a microtransaction fee will go directly to the validator who mined it, which is important for incentives, and how much goes to all active validators. So this would be any validator that is not currently jailed. And this split sort of goes in between incentivizing individual validators to really figure out how to include the most transactions to prioritize the right thing, versus incentivizing validators to be around and just participating in consensus. So it's sort of a sliding scale between the two. So deciding what would be the right values for these, whether it be 100% on one side, all to the validator who mined it, or if it should be something like 60-40, 80-20, is a relevant community discussion and has a few different trade-offs. I think the only wrong value here would be to distribute would be 100% distributed to the validator set as a whole, because that would take away the incentive to prioritize microtransactions and could be problematic for use of the chain. But as long as that incentive is there, then it's a matter of seeing if it's strong enough at any given time and maybe dialing it up or down a little bit. Versus if you're saying, oh, we're not seeing enough validators online, or you're seeing, oh, the number of transactions, microtransactions are having to wait too long.
I think
And just to jump in with a couple technical details here, I wanted to call attention to the way that this is being implemented is we're kind of mimicking some functionality that already existed in the Cosmos SDK. And so we're kind of implementing a proposer priority bonus for the micro TX fees to align our incentives here. And so for any concerned validators or people who want to know technical details, what we're expecting is that over, average block production and average micro TX production, it will even out to all the validators getting kind of the same proportion of fees that they would normally get. However, for a validator who doesn't want to include these micro TX fees, they'll get significantly fewer rewards. So there is an incentive into including these micro TX rewards, but on average, everything should work out so that it's roughly the same as a chain that didn't have kind of incentives, so long as the validators are including these transactions.
I think another thing, thank you for that context, Christian and Justin. I think another thing that maybe folks don't know too is that the micro TX rewards are in the token being transacted in, so USDC. So I don't know if you want to chat about that too and how that works with inflation, differences between.
Yeah. So this is more of a chain economics question than like an incentive design question. So well, I guess they're tied. But anyways, validators and delegators on Althea 1 are going to receive two types of rewards. They receive inflationary rewards, which would be voted on by the community as far as the amount, and that would be denominated in Althea. And then they're going to receive stablecoin denominated rewards from microtransaction module fees. And these two different types of rewards need to be balanced. So inflation on average for Althea 1 should probably be less than it would be on a chain that didn't have stablecoin rewards, or obviously you're sort of overpaying for validator security. And then Althea 1 inflation is then offset by the burn of token use in the EVM. So this is kind of similar to the Ethereum EIP 1559 model, where I think it's 1559. If I'm wrong, who cares? The point is the whole sort of transaction fee burn model. And this helps to offset inflation and provide sort of a nice control valve for excessive sort of EVM transactions. Because obviously part of the reason Ethereum implemented the fee burn was because validator incentives are actually So the reason Ethereum implemented fee burn is because validators were including transactions and being paid for it out of band, or paying for their own transactions. So for example, if you were to include your own giant transaction that uses a bunch of gas, you would pay yourself for it and effectively not pay for block space, even though the entire community that thinks the blockchain in the future does pay for block space. So the incentives of not burning fees on programmable chains is actually really bad and is not sustainable anywhere, because you create this sort of tragedy of the commons where every validator is incentivized to do things that are bad for the community at large. So that's why the fee burn is meant to offset inflation a little bit, but it's mostly meant to deal with that alignment issue.
No, appreciate that context. I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's just a little the balance is a little bit different, kind of for the same reasons that you outlined earlier. So I think it's important to share the kind of purposeful design and thought that went into both the economics and the design space. And probably a good segue into what we've been doing on the EVM side with what we are calling the DePIN DEX. And there isn't a ton of information out there yet about this. So I think it'd be good to just kind of go through what the DePIN DEX does, what the community can do with that, and then I can maybe share a little bit of some thoughts of how we're hearing some of our enterprise and ISP customers thinking about using the DePIN DEX together with liquid infrastructure and so forth after maybe you can outline a bit how that all works.
Yeah, so the DePIN DEX is sort of the name we have for a native canonical governance controlled DEX on Althea L1. And it's a fork of Ambient or CrocSwap, depending on what name you are familiar with, that we've made some significant modifications and upgrades to. And I'll have some blog posts coming out about this soon, which I think is really interesting. And I think the community partners and the users are really going to like the user experience of this, sort of providing a foundational DEX experience. Obviously, we don't expect to meet that the native DEX will meet every need, but we hope that it'll meet the basic needs of the chain to provide, liquidity and the ability to do something really straightforward, like you're bridging in USDC from Ethereum and you need to get some Althea to pay fees. Obviously, you need some sort of native DEX in place to handle that, just to help people onboard and use the platform. So yeah, let's see. So where do we want to start with the changes we've made? So the first thing we've done is that Christian and feel free to interrupt me if you want to talk in more detail about this part, has developed a replacement for the Graph Cache Go sort of backend for ambient DEX. And the reason for this, you might find a little surprising. It's because we wanted the front end and interactions with the DEX to be more decentralized. So by default, or as it is right now, not only for all ambient forks except ours, you need to use the Graph API to query key things about the DEX and interact with anything. The problem with this is that it syncs very slowly, on the order of, a block, maybe 2 a second. If you have a reasonably nice machine and you need a full archive node, which can be many terabytes of data, depending on how much DEX information you need to sync. And this is really impractical for the community to be able to deploy a new front end. We have a goal and an objective that somebody should be able to deploy a front end and interact with Althea L1 really easily, whether that be through microtransactions router and also with the EVM side. So making a native DEX for the chain that required multiple terabytes of storage and potentially weeks of backend data syncing before you can host a front end for it was really sort of in opposition to that goal. So Christian has done a really great job designing a new backend and adding and making some changes, new events and triggers within the DEX itself, so that we can have a event-based backend which queries the same information at several thousand times the syncing speed. And this really isn't a knock necessarily on the graph itself, because the graph provides a lot more querying capability than you really need to use ambient. And that's really where all this speed up is coming from. So our new backend replacing the Graph Cache Go component syncs at, I've seen 2,000 blocks a second, 2,500. Anyways, it doesn't really matter. You don't even notice it happening. So it takes the process of taking potentially weeks to spin up a new UI and all the necessary backend servers to something you can do in a matter of 30 or 45 seconds.
Just interjecting really quickly here too, for those that want to take a look at this front end that we're talking about, and that's being worked on, it's althea.link, so althea.link, if you want to check it out and kick some tires as well. It's also a good opportunity, Shalabi, I know the Chandra Station team's been doing a ton of work on this as well. You want to share a little bit about your perspective?
Yeah, so the front end is a fork of Canto UI that's been highly customized to serve our needs. As Justin and Christian have been explaining, the functionality of Althea far exceeds what the Canto UI was capable of delivering for us. I guess it's more so, they're focused on other things, so it's been a lot of custom work. One of those hurdles has been, as Justin was speaking to, the back end. Together with Justin and Christian, we've fully replaced the backend for the Althea application, and it runs incredibly fast, and it makes for a way simpler developer experience. And another thing we prioritize in making things easy to run is so that anybody can do it. So whether that's spinning up the back end or forking the front end, or maybe you're geo locked and you want to deploy your own and host it yourself, or whatever you want to do, then that's a potential option there as well. So yeah, I think just we prioritize developer experience and ease of access for anybody who wants to look or write the code.
Yeah, and the
Shalabi,
deployment automation is fully checked into the code as well. So, I mean, it's not like you even necessarily need to look at it and then have an easy time deploying it. The script to do it is already included.
And Shalabi, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're also seeing better performance on a lot of the features that we've got. I believe with some of the test code, you were seeing that it took concentrated liquidity pools to appear 30 seconds to appear in the front end when making queries to the subgraph.
Yeah, and those are now loaded instantly. I mean, that information is fetched and cached before the loading animation even finishes on Althea L1's app. So yeah, it definitely is a lot faster.
That's huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and I want to make clear that the graph and the graph API provides a lot of power here, which you don't really need to do just basic DEX querying. So part of the problem with why it was slower is that it was kind of using a bazooka to open a door. You can do it. It's probably not advisable though.
Well, I think that's sort of the nexus of Althea is like a practical approach. I was thinking as I'm listening to everyone, and listening to different blockchain discussions in the ecosystem, a lot of times there's discussions about the tech for the tech itself, right? It does this many neat things and TPS and all of these different stats. But it doesn't really relate to, how users of the blockchain and are going to need to want to interact with it and optimizing for that. And so that's one of the things that I think is, this purpose-built approach, a building for different sub stakeholders and things like that are going to utilize or build or implement the chain to interact with actual customers to disrupt real utilities and telecom and infrastructure type space, I think has really made you'll see the differences, and you can hear it in the way that I think that the teams here describe the approach.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things for people and community members to understand is that for most blockchain projects, they're coming from the perspective of, okay, we're building a platform for a bunch of potential applications, and they're trying to sort of attract users to that platform. So the features they're making are about trying to make the platform more interesting or saying, oh, we have this stupendous amount of throughput. Whereas Althea 1, it was sort of developed the exact opposite direction. So the first thing we did is that Hawk developed the Althea protocol, and now there is a ecosystem of many ISPs with real customers, including Hawk, that are using the Althea protocol to buy and sell bandwidth, serve thousands of homes, home internet, etc. And that means that Althea 1's design is not created by a group of people looking to find customers to use their platform. It's made by customers of the platform who have specific needs and are like, this is what we need to do. We don't have time to fiddle with this. Customers are having this issue. So that results in a very different kind of development. Instead of talking about, oh, here is this new feature which increases hypothetical throughput 10x, it's more about, oh, hey, we have polished this particular catch point that was causing customers issues, because the stakeholders are not focused on creating a platform for the platform's sake. They are focused on facilitating the application that is their business.
Well, exactly right. I think that's interesting to talk about the DePIN index and sort of the origination and the thoughts around some of the users that we've talked to who need the kinds of functionality that the DePIN index provides. Whether this has in certain cases this has been ISPs, telecom providers that provide internet to their users that want to build sort of potentially incentive-based tokens, or they want to have, interact with existing other tokens and then swap them for USDC, and then have ease of use in the, kind of Althea telecom platform itself. And so a lot of, kind of that kind of functionality that can be used in a programmable way is really kind of the impetus that made the DePIN index kind of where we're thinking about, building. And of course, it'll evolve as, time and governance and users come to the platform beyond, the existing user base, which is currently the majority of the Althea protocol users right now, which is mostly on the infrastructure or on the Gnosis chain, getting ready after this integration phase to move over to Althea L1. Are utilizing it for telecom or broadband networks. So that's a variety of different ISP operators building broadband networks using the platform to deliver internet to their customers. And now with Liquid Infrastructure, really you get new ways of kind of coordinating, bringing in other types of funding sources, and there's a lot more now flexibility to some of the coordination of those ISP networks, or even now thinking beyond broadband into mobile and devices and some of the other types of, like Justin famously talks about, the vending machines and coordinating a set of vending machines. So we'll be ready for when the vending machines come online, right?
Well, you see, I've just always liked physical, and anyways, it's kind of what attracted me to Althea and this sort of stuff in the first place. I like physical devices, electronics, circuits, things that you can actually touch and use. So I find vending machines probably unjustifiably cool. I don't know.
Well, I think that, but one of the things I've actually been kind of musing on a bit, and I hope the audience will indulge me for just a minute, but it really, actually, I'm here in New York City. We just had NASDAQ yesterday presenting alongside Global Star at their Investor Day on our partnership together with them on their spectrum. And, really, we do have that different approach to telecom. And that is really from almost a machine perspective. How are machines going to communicate and pay each other? And I think we've really looked at the industry from a kind of a fundamentally different perspective from the, the hardware and the machine itself. And really, to me, the inflection point and the timing, the way eSIMs are coming together, and now the L1, really gives us that platform to scale these types of applications on top of. It's pretty exciting, but I do think it is, that I think that the culmination of kind of that perspective of seeing the world through the perspective of machine-to-machine communication and payment was sort of a different shift that now the market's catching up to.
Yeah, so let's see. Do we have any other thoughts or questions?
If folks feel free to jump in, questions or thoughts on the thing, or Shalabi, Christian, jump in. But while we are waiting for folks, I would like to announce and celebrate that today is Gravity Bridge's birthday. It is turning 3. And so for many of us that have been on that journey, you know, and I count the folks here in this team, it's all part of them. It's really exciting to see the durability and sustainability of the, you know, a truly decentralized, coordinated system survive, and that resiliency that we come to blockchain to build for be proven out. So happy birthday, Gravity Bridge.
You know,
Yeah, it's really exciting. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Just speaking of reliability is one thing that I'm like really happy about that we've gotten to accomplish with Althea L1 and this new Althea Link site that we've been working on for so long is just we've kind of made a website, like a blockchain connected website that feels like infrastructure. It feels solid, you know, from all the design of all the components that we're relying on. We're kind of looking at things and we're pruning things that are unreliable and don't really perform well, and we're replacing them with things that kind of are designed from the ground up to be completely reliable, very performant, easy to stand up, you know, like open source, completely like able to go into an automated deploy in the matter of minutes and resync, you know, all of the blockchain state extremely quickly and not having to wait an entire week for a single machine that's oversized to do
Not needing
everything.
an archive node.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm really happy with what we've gotten done, you know, and it comes down to things like minimizing the dependencies that you're using when you can replace them easily with smaller or custom written things. It comes down to redesigning components like that Graph Cache Go API. And it comes down to, you know, not allowing your node modules folder to be the, you know, heaviest thing in the universe, even bigger than a black hole. You know, I'm really proud of kind of what we've managed to accomplish, and that goes all the way back to the Althea L1 blockchain, where we've kind of like taken multiple iterations of designing these modules that are really just supposed to serve the user ultimately, and kind of be this thing that you're not even thinking about or aware of. It's really nice to see like a website, which frequently doesn't exist in that kind of state, feel like infrastructure. So I'm really proud of what we've managed to accomplish on this.
Yeah, and I think that really reflects the customer focus rather than sort of the whiz-bang platform features focus that we have. You know, what customers want is something reliable. And by reliable, we don't mean it mostly works. We mean it always works within the limits of what we can do. And this is influenced a lot by working in telecom, because customers expect the absolute maximum performance out of the hardware that they buy, and they want it at a low cost and with stupendous reliability. And bringing that philosophy elsewhere has really worked well for us.
Speaking of working in telecom, I think another proof point that's also really exciting is, some of the networks that utilize the Althea platform have now been around for 4 or 5 years and still going strong, across Oregon, California, North Carolina. Many of those initial networks are still serving, and growing their initial customer base. And so this is, I think, is something that we can have a lot of pride about, and that platform has survived that kind of test of time. You really don't have DePIN projects that have that kind of credibility of building and robustness and trust. And we're building the L1, and that's with that same kind of set in mind. So there is a lot of time taken to measure twice and cut once. But I think what we'll see from that is that same kind of sustainability and long lasting, Christian, to your point, infrastructure. I love that. I love that word. We talk about it a lot. We've been talking a lot about this idea of I-Fi, of infrastructure finance. And that's really that, intersection of the, financial Legos along with infrastructure. But mad props to everyone that's been involved with it, and the many different validators and operators and developers and team members that have been part of this journey. So yeah, congrats on Gravity's birthday, and congrats on the mini networks that still survive and serve folks with faster, more affordable internet.
Yeah, coming at the reliability perspective from the Gravity side too, I have to say I certainly did not expect to be 3 years in and still be the only decentralized bridge between Ethereum and Cosmos. That's kind of big surprise for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a surprise for me too. And honestly, I feel like the blockchain industry has pivoted a bit toward a more centralized approach. Much to I think the detriment of the industry itself, as we know that centralized models are more brittle and do not have that resiliency and reliability. And so I think, we may end up, I think that this has been talked about before, but a bit of a divergence between sort of the true decentralized models that have that resiliency, that have that staying power, to the more kind of corporate or centralized kind of emerging projects that we do see a little bit more of today, unfortunately, right?
Yeah, I mean, I am really proud of the robust decentralized design, and Gravity Bridge is the most forked bridge protocol after IBC, with more public implementations that I can count, exactly because it is simple, reliable, and actually fully open source like none of the others. So yeah, it's really interesting and somewhat humbling to sort of be the standard bearer of decentralization in this space after so long, because um, it's not a position we were really gunning for.
So if folks want to know a little bit more about Gravity, the Chandra Stations team has built a pretty cool auction module and a dashboard as well. Shalabi, can you tell us a little bit more about those, since we are talking about that anyway?
Yeah. I don't think we built the auction module ourselves. I think that was Justin and Christian assisting another team, but we did build the front end that allows a user to view all the auctions that are available and post a bid on that auction. So basically what happens is the auction fee module collects half of every chain fee. So every time you submit a transaction from Cosmos to Ethereum, a fee is collected besides the actual Ethereum fee. And the chain fee gets split. 50% of it goes to the stakers and 50% of it goes to the auction module. And from there, the auction module creates, obviously, auctions that users are able to bid on for those tokens, and you pay in Graviton, the fee token of the Gravity Bridge chain. Recently, we just had a pretty big check pool. I think it was something like $1,100, and somebody secured that rather quickly with 1,000,000 Gravity tokens.
Yeah, and you also have a UI to use the bridge itself, which is gravitypulse.app. Do I have the URL
Yeah,
right?
that's a bridge. So the auction is auction.gravitypulse.app, and the bridge is bridge.gravitypulse.app.
And Gravity also has a Discord as well too, if folks want to get involved on a validator, be part of the community, or find out more information about these things too. So definitely welcome that open participation into Gravity as well as Althea. Really both exciting ecosystems.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I think that's everything. I don't see any new questions in the chat. So I think we should go ahead and wrap up then.
I think so. Yeah, let's just, we also have just for folks that are wanting to join us again, we're having a festive IFI or infrastructure finance roundtable next week at this time. So Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. And that's going to have some other DePIN projects in the ecosystem, just kind of talking a little bit about that intersection of fintech and infrastructure and a little bit on telecom as well too. So that should be fun, kind of right before the holidays. Please join us there on that one. Yeah, and then maybe we can just sort of wrap up with this kind of just the upcoming. Real quick on the upcoming upgrade, it needs a name. And so if you'd like to be part of our naming convention on upgrades, please join us in Discord, put your hat in the ring for a Greek mythology themed name. And if we choose you, we also do have a merch pack to send you as well to thank you for that participation. So if that's something you like to do, please join us in Discord. And we're going to need a name here pretty quick because that update's coming down the pipeline. But yeah, maybe we can just wrap up the call with what's happening here in the next couple of weeks, around the holiday time.
Yeah, so I think we're hoping to sort of wrap up the first phase of Althea Deck's functionality, get that all tested and ready to go. And then at that point, it'll be up to the community if they want to deploy with that version or perhaps wait a little while longer for a couple more features. So we'll spend some time talking about that once it's ready. And all of this development, by the way, is completely open on GitHub. So go to the github.com Althea Foundation, and you'll find you'll find everything we're working on, and you can sort of check in on the progress.
Very cool. Well, it's exciting. I'm really excited about the next couple of weeks, and of course, coming into 2025, and the adoption of liquid infrastructure is gaining. It should be a great start to next year. So thanks everybody for being here, and join us again next week for the iFi holiday roundtable. And until then, y'all have a great weekend. Thanks so much.
See you guys.
See ya.
Thanks.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.